students, today I am gonna tell you a story which is named as Macbeth.
Okay, sir, tell us that story.
Now listen.
When Duncan was the king of Scotland, there lived a brave general who was looked up to with high esteem throughout Scotland for his great valor and skill in wars. He was also a close relative of the old king. He was Macbeth, the Thane of Glamis. Of late, he defeated a rebel army assisted by the troops of Norway in great numbers. The two Scottish generals, Macbeth and Banquo, were returning from the great battle. There were thunder and lightning. On the way, they were stopped by the strange appearance of three figures that looked like women, except that they had beards, and their withered skin and wild dresses make them look like unearthly creatures. They were dancing, they were singing. Fair is foul, and foul is fair, hovered through the fog and filled the air. As they saw the two generals, the first which saluted Macbeth with the title of Thane of Glamis. The general was scarcely startled to find himself known by such creatures. The second which addressed him as the Thane of Cawdor, which he had no pretensions, and the third told him, "You will be the king of Scotland hereafter." Such a prophetic greeting might well amaze him, for he knew that as long as the king's son survived, he could scarcely hope to succeed the throne. By this time, Banquo was curious to know the reason why the witches had little to say about him, whereas they kindled hope in the heart of his dearest friend. So the witches turned towards Banquo and told him in somewhat riddling terms to be lesser than Macbeth and greater, not so happy but much happier. They also prophesied that although Banquo would never reign as the king of Scotland, yet his successors would be the kings. And then they turned into thin air and vanished, by which the generals realized the weird sisters to be witches. While they stood there pondering on the strangeness of this adventure, there arrived certain envoys from the king, who were empowered to confirm upon Macbeth the title of the Thane of Cawdor. It was an event so miraculously corresponding with the predictions of the witches that Macbeth stood there wrapped in amazement, unable to respond to the greetings of the envoys. Hopes began to swell in his heart as he was now thinking of the prediction of the third witch. Turning to Banquo, he said, "Do not hope that your children will be the kings of the future, since what the witches promised to me has so wonderfully come to pass. That hope," replied Banquo, "might enkindle you to aim at the throne, but oftentimes these ministers of darkness tell us truths in little things to betray us into the deeds of greatest consequence." However, the prophecies of the witches had sunk too deep into the mind of Macbeth. He told his wife about the predictions of the three witches and also its partial accomplishment. Lady Macbeth was an extremely ambitious woman. She spurred on the relentless purpose of Macbeth, who felt compunction at the thought of blood. She did not care to represent the murder of the king as a step absolutely necessary to the fulfilling of the faltering prophecies. It happened that at this time King Duncan came to visit Macbeth's castle along with his two sons, Macon and Donalbain, and numerous thanes and attendants to honor Macbeth for his triumph against the rebels. Inverness. The castle of Macbeth was pleasantly situated on a hill and the air about it was sweet and wholesome. The nest that the swallows or the martlets had built under all the jutting phrases and the buttresses of the building. The king was extremely pleased as he entered the palace, not only for its wonderful ambience, but also due to the attention and respect of his hostess, Lady Macbeth, who had developed the art of camouflaging her treacherous purposes with smiles and charming etiquette. Tired of his long journey, the king went early to bed. It was the middle of the night. Now, over half the world's nature seemed dead, and wicked dreams abused sleeping men's minds. And none but the wolf or the murderer is out for hunt. This was the time when Lady Macbeth woke up to plot the murder of the king. She would not have undertaken a deed so abhorrent to her sex, and she was well aware of her husband's nature, that was too full of the milk of human kindness to execute a contrived murder. She knew that her husband was ambitious. He was not prepared for the height of the crime which commonly accompanies inordinate ambition. She had won his consent about the murder, but she doubted his resolution, and she feared the natural tenderness of his disposition could defeat the purpose. So, armed with a dagger, she approached the king's chamber. When there, she found Duncan in sound sleep, and as she viewed him earnestly, there was something in his face which resembled her own father. Thus, he had not the resolution to proceed further. She returned to confer with her husband. He thought there were strong reasons against the murder.